Hello, I'm Ollie, and this is CriminOlly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, British folk horror. I want to talk to you about Cunning Folk by Adam Nevill. So this was my first Adam Nevill book. He's an author I've been meaning to get to for ages. I've heard many great things about him. And based on my experience with this book, those great things were justified. This was a really, really good horror novel. I enjoyed it a hell of a lot. And the thing that makes it really strong, I think, is the connection you build with the characters in this book. So there are three characters at the heart of it. A family, mum, dad and daughter. And Nevill does a great job of making them feel like real people, which means that the things that happen in this book have all the more impact as a result of that. So let me tell you what it's about. So as I say, it's about a young family. So the dad, Tom, the mum, Fiona, and the daughter, Gracie, who's, I can't remember how old she is, but she's, like 5 or 6, that sort of age. And Tom and Fiona are struggling financially. They've managed to save up enough money to buy a house, but it's a really run-down house in the country, like a semi-detached house. But yeah, completely falling apart. And the previous owner of the house has committed suicide, which is one of the reasons they got it cheap, as well as the fact that it's tumbled down. And you witness that suicide at the start of the book. The kind of prologue is that suicide. And there's definitely something really creepy going on. So right from the start that this is a horror novel. Anyway, they move into the house, and Nevill really brilliantly captures that tension of being in an existence where you are right on the borderline of not being able to afford to carry on. So they are really, really struggling, and you really feel that struggle in every decision they have to make. They quickly realise after moving in that the neighbours who live next door are pretty horrific. So there's weird stuff going on. There's strange people coming, strange times of the day and night, things like that. But there's also just immediately a tension and an animosity between, these two new neighbours, the people who lived there before and the family that have just moved in. And that quickly escalates into kind of outright conflict, particularly between Tom and the couple, the couple who live next door. And there's a number of kind of differences, if you like, between them. So Tom and Fiona and Gracie, who are younger, who are working class, who've moved from the city out to the country, and as I say, are really struggling against this couple who live next door, who are older, who are established in the community, and who are wealthier, who because as much as anything, because of fortune, because of being born at the right time, have managed to end up with a comfortable life and live in this house. Whereas Tom and Gracie, Tom, Fiona and Gracie, again because of circumstances, because of the state of the economy and so on and so forth, and that the fact that housing prices now, certainly I don't know if this is the same internationally, but certainly in the UK, housing prices now are phenomenally higher than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago, to the extent that it can be very difficult for young families and young people to get onto the housing ladder. So there are these differences between them, and the conflict, really plays on those differences, and you feel this kind of tension gradually escalating as the book progresses. And this, really happens in the first third of the book. Is that gradual build up of tension, and you really feel the frustration of Tom in particular as the main character, who's just trying to get a nice house for his family, and has all these, has had all these obstacles put in his way, which he's managed to overcome in buying this house, and now finds new obstacles put in the way in terms of the standoffishness and conflict from these neighbours next door. And on that foundation, which was already really engaging and really tense, Nevill then builds a really, really creepy horror story. And I won't go into the details too much of what it's about, but suffice to say, it's folk horror. It involves the couple next door, And it also involves the countryside. So there is a woods kind of at the bottom of the garden of these houses, where, you know, again, weird stuff goes on. And Nevill makes great use of that location, particularly as somewhere where Gracie, the daughter, you know, kind of goes to play. And his character work for her is fantastic as well. And he really captures that kind of childhood innocence and playfulness and delight in, you know, in nature and the surroundings. So that when, you know, weird and creepy stuff starts happening, and some of that you see through Gracie's eyes, and you see it with that kind of childish wonder, and you don't know how much of it is real and how much of it is her imagination. And similarly with Tom, when he, you know, when he starts to witness strange things, they're always kind of out of the corner of his eye. And there's this wonderful effect of you not really knowing whether the stuff that you think is going on is actually going on, or if it's a combination of, you know, Tom being overtired, Gracie being, you know, young and imaginative, and so on and so forth. So a really wonderful and effective book, and really genuinely creepy and scary at times. It's been a while since I read a horror book that really sent a chill down my spine, but this definitely did. It was fantastically well done, and it's really that combination of the everyday and things that all of us can, you know, can imagine and relate to, in terms of, you know, wanting to provide a nice home for our families, and the struggles we face in everyday life to do that. So that foundation, then with the horror built on top of it, is really, really effective. And I think, you know, I said this in my review of Snow Crash that I did yesterday, that one of the things that I felt was a bit of a fail with that book was I never felt like I made a connection with the characters. The characters in this book I really felt like I made a connection with. Even the antagonists, to an extent, you kind of get them as people. They feel like, you know, like real individuals. So yeah, really, really effective. And the last thing I would say about this book, which I loved and wouldn't necessarily have expected to like, is the prose style. So it's a really rich and quite ornate style of prose that Nevill has, and wonderfully descriptive, almost poetic at times. So some sections where you will get just, you know, like very short sentences that really encapsulate a moment or a feeling or a smell, or, you know, that kind of thing. And I typically am someone who likes more kind of stripped down, you know, bare prose, the kind of prose you get in, you know, in crime novels. But Nevill does a wonderful job of writing interestingly and creatively, but that never getting in the way of the story. So it really felt like it added to the atmosphere of the book. So yeah, all in all, very successful. Definitely will be reading more by him. And yeah, a wonderful combination of, you know, an interesting plot, some really creepy atmospheric scenes. There's some scenes towards the end which, like, there was one in particular which like really took me aback. It was so horrifying because of that connection you built with the characters, because you really cared about these people. The things that happened to them really matter to you. So yeah, a wonderful combination of different things brought together in a really, really effective book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Okay, time for a random book from the shelves. Some more British horror, but not folk horror, and not by an author who you could ever accuse of writing poetically. That book is Assassin, and the author is Sean Hudson. Is this not a fantastic cover? Actually, I didn't say that about Cunning Folk. This is a fantastic cover. This is a really creative, imaginative cover that perfectly matches the book. This I also think is a fantastic cover, but really trashy, which really matches the book. So Sean Hudson, if you don't know, writes incredibly graphic, violent horror and crime novels, but really kind of punchy stuff, really enjoyable. I'm a big fan of his work. So I hope you found that interesting. Let me know if you read Adam Nevill and what you think of him. Let me know if you've read Cunning Folk. Let me know if you've got other British folk horror recommendations. Keen to read more of that kind of thing. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.